Welcome back to Chilling Fireside Stories, where the warmth of the fire and the sound of crackling logs set the perfect mood for the chilling mystery we're about to unfold. Before we dive into tonight's story, I want to say how much it means to me that you're here. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel. It helps keep me going and ensures you never miss another tale. And don't forget to hit the bell icon for notifications. Now grab a warm drink, settle into your favorite spot, and let the soothing crackle of the fire carry you as we explore one of the most unnerving mysteries ever recorded, the story of Axeman of New Orleans. Between 1918 and 1919, a city already steeped in mystery, voodoo, and jazz became the hunting ground of a ruthless, axe-wielding killer. The people of New Orleans locked their doors, gripped by fear of the unknown, as the Axeman lurked in the shadows ready to strike. But what makes this story even more chilling is that despite the brutality, the Axeman was never caught, never identified, and his motives were as elusive as he was. As we sit by the comforting fire tonight, we'll journey into the dark streets of New Orleans a century ago. We'll unravel the details of the murders, the investigation, and the strange letter that the Axeman sent to the newspaper, mocking the city and law enforcement. So sit back, let the fire warm you, and listen closely as we uncover one of the most terrifying unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. To understand the Axeman of New Orleans, we must first understand the city itself. New Orleans in the early 20th century. This was a time when jazz music was on the rise, the city was bustling with culture, and a melting pot of people lived their lives in the French Quarter, uptown, and in the outskirts of the city. But it was also a time of tension and anxiety. Picture a city drenched in heat and humidity, where jazz floated from dimly lit clubs, and the streets echoed with the sounds of street vendors and horse-drawn carriages. New Orleans was a cultural melting pot, home to a vibrant mix of French, Spanish, African, Italian, and Creole cultures. But beneath its lively surface, the city simmered with tension. The lingering aftereffects of World War I, economic instability, and racial strife created an undercurrent of fear and unease. It was into this environment that the Axeman emerged, a figure who would come to embody the city's growing sense of dread. The Axeman's reign of terror began in the early months of 1918, a time when the country was still healing from the wounds of war and the devastation caused by the Spanish flu pandemic. New Orleans was already a city accustomed to violence, with its dark history of organized crime and political corruption. But even in a city known for its tough reputation, no one was prepared for what was about to unfold. The first recorded attack by the Axeman occurred on May 23, 1918, when an Italian grocer named Joseph Maggio and his wife, Catherine, were brutally murdered in their home. Their small grocery store, located on the corner of Upper and Magnolia Streets, was a popular spot for the local Italian community. According to police reports, it was just after midnight when the killer struck. Joseph and Catherine were found in their bedroom, their throats slashed with a straight razor. But it was the brutal use of an axe that set this crime apart. Both victims had been bludgeoned with the blunt side of the weapon. Blood was splattered across the walls and bed sheets, painting a grisly picture of the couple's last moments. Joseph's brothers, Jake and Andrew Maggio, discovered the bodies when they came to check on their siblings the next morning. Andrew, a barber by trade, later revealed that one of his straight razors had gone missing in the days leading up to the murder, though it was never recovered. This small detail would raise suspicion, but ultimately Andrew was cleared of any involvement in the crime. The police were left baffled. There were no signs of forced entry. The back door had been chiseled away, allowing the killer to slip inside undetected. Strangely, nothing appeared to have been stolen from the home, leading investigators to rule out robbery as a motive. But the most disturbing detail, the axe used in the attack had been left behind, casually discarded by the killer as if it were an afterthought. News of the brutal murders spread like wildfire, and soon the people of New Orleans were gripped with fear. The idea that a madman could break into homes and kill without warning sent shockwaves through the community. The fact that the killer left behind his weapon, An axe typically found in the victim's own home seemed to mock both the victims and the police. The murders of Joseph and Catherine Maggio were just the beginning. Over the next few months, more victims would fall prey to the Axeman, and with each attack the city's fear deepened. Many of the victims were Italian or Italian-American grocers, leading some to speculate that the killer was targeting the Italian community specifically. Others believed the murders were the work of a deranged madman, killing at random for reasons known only to him. The police were desperate for leads, but the Axeman left little in the way of evidence. Witnesses were few and far between, and those who did come forward offered conflicting accounts. Some claimed to have seen a man lurking near the crime scenes, but descriptions of his appearance varied widely. Some said he was tall and thin, others described him as short and stocky. One thing was clear: the Axeman was elusive, slipping away into the night after each attack. On June 28, 1918, another Italian grocer, Louis Bessumer, and his mistress, Harriet Lowe, were attacked in the early hours of the morning. Bessumer had been struck with an axe, and Harriet, though badly wounded, managed to survive long enough to give a statement to the police. She claimed that Bessumer was involved in espionage and that their attack was part of a larger conspiracy. However, her statement was dismissed as delirium brought on by her injuries. In August of that year, the Axeman struck again, this time killing a woman named Anna Schneider, who was 8 months pregnant at the time. Unlike previous attacks, Schneider was not Italian, but the method of her murder matched the previous patterns. The city was gripped with terror. By March 1919, the Axeman's reign of terror seemed to have no end in sight. Panic spread through the streets, and even the police were at a loss. The killer was methodical, careful, and seemed to strike at random. Homes were no longer safe, and New Orleans lived in constant fear of the next attack. It was during this time that the Axeman's most infamous letter was published in the local newspaper. It was addressed to the esteemed mortal of New Orleans and signed by none other than the Axeman himself. In the letter, the killer promised that he would spare anyone who played jazz music on the night of March 19th. That evening, the sounds of jazz filled the air as citizens across the city played music in hopes of avoiding the Axeman's wrath. As the Axeman's killing spree continued, investigators struggled to connect the dots. Was the killer someone with a personal vendetta against the Italian community? Was he a deranged lunatic killing for the thrill of it? Or was there something deeper, something darker behind the Axeman's brutal attacks? Many theories have been proposed over the years. Some believe the Axeman was connected to the mafia, using the murders as a way to settle scores or send a message to rival gangs. Others argue that the killer was a drifter, passing through the city and striking randomly. One of the more popular theories suggests that the Axeman was, in fact, several people, not just one. The idea is that the murders were copycat crimes, with multiple individuals taking on the mantle of the Axeman to cover their own tracks. This theory, though plausible, has never been proven. The police, meanwhile, were grasping at straws. They questioned hundreds of people, but no one was ever charged with the murders. Detectives followed up on every lead, but the Axeman seemed to vanish into thin air after each attack. It was as if he were a ghost, slipping away into the night before anyone could catch him. By October 1919, the Axeman's killing spree had seemingly come to an end. His last known victim, Mike Pepitone, was attacked in his home in the early hours of the morning. Pepitone's wife awoke to the sound of her husband's cries, but by the time she reached him it was too late. Pepitone had been bludgeoned with an axe, his skull crushed beyond recognition. After the Pepitone murder, the Axeman vanished as quickly as he had appeared. No one was ever arrested or charged in connection with the murders, and the identity of the Axeman remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American crime history. The people of New Orleans were left with a lingering sense of fear. Was the Axeman still out there waiting to strike again? Or had he simply moved on, leaving a trail of terror in his wake? To this day, the Axeman's true identity remains a mystery. Some believe that he was a local man, someone with intimate knowledge of the city and its people. Others argue that he was a transient, passing through New Orleans on his way to commit more murders elsewhere. But one thing is certain. The Axeman of New Orleans will forever remain a dark chapter in the city's history. And so, the mystery of the Axeman of New Orleans remains unsolved to this day. Was he a madman, a mob hitman, or something else entirely? The truth may never be known. But one thing is certain. The terror he unleashed on the city will never be forgotten. If you enjoyed tonight's chilling tale, please don't forget to subscribe to Chilling Fireside Stories. Your support means so much to me and helps me continue bringing you these stories. Tap the bell icon so you never miss a new episode, and share this story with your friends if you think they'll enjoy it too. Until next time, stay warm, stay safe, and remember, some mysteries are best left unsolved.